American Muslim Institution. Presents American Muslim Changemakers, honoring COVID-19 heroes. Our leaders help reshape Muslim narratives, mobilize civic engagement, and build relationships with our government, organizations, and communities. Join us as we honor those making a lasting legacy and contributions to the future of America. Thank you for joining.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening from the East Coast. Good afternoon for those of you joining us from the West Coast. We're so pleased to have all of you joining us today for this virtual gathering. As we enter 6 months into a global pandemic, we see racial tensions threatening to tear this country apart, and the recent passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we might feel times are a bit bleak, we might feel isolated and saddened. But today we are here to celebrate the successes of our community, the American Muslim community, and the things that we have accomplished during this very trying and difficult time. Today, we are here to honor American Muslim changemakers, those individuals that are not only having an impact within the Muslim community, but also in broader societies. Today, we are going to honor those individuals who are leading the charge during this pandemic in fields such as medicine, public service, racial justice, and many more. These people are motivated by the Prophet of Islam and their religion. The Prophet Muhammad stated, "Every good deed is a charity." Today, we are here to celebrate those good deeds. We wanted to shift the narrative on our community, and that's what AMI has been working to do over the last 5 years. We're also fortunate to be graced with the presence of our elected officials who will be recognizing and encouraging our change makers on their excellent work. In addition to our elected officials, we're fortunate to have a unique perspective, an academic perspective, looking at how the work of our change makers, how their philanthropy is shifting the discourse on American Muslims here in this country. And finally, our keynote speaker will be discussing the Prophet of Islam, Muslims, race relations, and the impact it has today. We have a wonderful program planned for all of you, and we are so excited to have you. To get the evening started, I have a few remarks from Dr. Aqilur Rahman. Unfortunately, he was unable to join us today live, but I'm happy to share his words. He is quite grateful to be part of AMI as a founding board member and the chairman of the board. In addition, he congratulates the organization on 5 years of astounding work. He appreciates everyone's support and wishes the best of luck for this event and many like this in the future. Kicking the evening off, I'd like to transition into our first speaker, American Muslim Institution's President, Ambassador Islam Siddiqui. For those of you that already know him, no introduction can do him justice. Since I have been in the Washington, D.C. area for the last 3 years, I've been impressed with his hard work, dedication, and enthusiasm for the American Muslim community. But for those of you not familiar with him, I'll offer a few words. He was the highest ranking Muslim in both the Obama and Clinton administrations. In the Obama administration, he was the U.S. Chief Agriculture Negotiator, and under the Clinton administration, he was the Marketing and Regulatory Undersecretary at the USDA. Ambassador Siddiqui, we are so happy for you to get us started this evening.
Assalamu alaikum. Greetings of peace to you all. On behalf of American Muslim Institution and its board, I welcome you to this virtual event honoring our heroes from the COVID-19 pandemic, and to focus on an issue which is on the minds of millions of Americans, that is racism in America. You'll hear more about this issue in the next 90 minutes. We have been through a lot during the last 6 months. Nearly 200,000 Americans have died from COVID-19, and more than 6.6 million Americans have been tested positive for this virus. Consequently, we are in the middle of one of the worst recessions in nearly 100 years. If it was not enough, we also have been experiencing street protests and violence in many cities since the murder of George Floyd and other African Americans this summer. During the next 90 minutes, we'll celebrate what is good about America, that is our exceptionalism and resilience as Americans, and discuss what ails America, namely racism. While most of you already know about AMI and its programs, please allow me to highlight some of our activities this year. Number one, since our inception 5 years ago, AMI has worked proactively to counter Islamophobia and to shift the narrative regarding Muslims and Islam by engaging with opinion leaders in the media, faith leaders, and policymakers. Number two, during this last 6 months, AMI has pivoted by helping the American Muslim community and other communities in dealing with the challenges that are facing us as a result of the pandemic and the ongoing recession. We have held several webinars on the CARES Act in order to help inform small business owners and nonprofit organizations which have been affected by the pandemic. Number three, we have held several webinars on race relations in America and are working with the Black Lives Matter movement and the AME churches to increase the voter turnout in the 2020 election, especially in African American communities and other minority communities. We firmly believe that every vote matters and elections have consequences. In closing, I thank you all for supporting MI and its programs, especially those of you who have contributed generously over the last 5 years. I also urge you that AMI needs and deserves your support in continuing this program in 2021. Therefore, please consider donating AMI for your tax-exempt donations this year, either online or by mail. I thank you for joining us and also enjoy the rest of the program this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Siddiqui, for those remarks. I think the issues that we are facing today as a community, whether racism or the pandemic, are important challenges for all Americans, especially Muslims. I think the program that we have and the speakers that we have lined up today will shed a great deal of light and interest and hope on the challenges we are facing today, and really will look at what our community is doing at a macro level and the individual successes. Speaking of the macro level, we're very fortunate to have our next speaker, our advisory board member, Dr. Sahar Khamis. For those of you that do not know Dr. Sahar, she is an assistant professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Maryland, College Park. She is an expert on Arab and Muslim media and the former head of the Mass Communication and Information Science Department in Qatar University. Dr. Khamis holds a PhD in communications. Dr. Khamis, you're up. We're looking forward to learning more about what the Muslim community is doing during this pandemic.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Greetings of peace. May peace always be with all of you. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, has a beautiful hadith, a beautiful saying that says that whoever sees evil should change it with their own hands. And if they can't, then with their own tongue. And if they can't, then with their own heart. And that's the least that they can do. And right now we're witnessing a lot of evil in this world, which has exacerbated with the COVID-19 pandemic, affecting so many people's lives in so many detrimental and very negative ways. We are seeing an increase in unemployment and homelessness and hunger. And indeed, it's an opportunity for all of us to try to step up and do a lot of good work to change this evil. And that's indeed what the change makers who are being honored today in this important event are doing with their own hands to bring about positive change in this world. I have been recently honored to be invited to participate in a very important symposium at Indiana University's Muslim Philanthropy Initiative. The symposium is about Muslims, philanthropy, and civil society. And it's going to be in November, and it's going to lead to the publication of a very important article on this particular topic in the Journal on Muslim Philanthropy and Civil Society in 2021, inshallah. What I intend to do in this study is to talk about a very important triangle, a triangle that has three important parts: Muslim philanthropy and their contribution to civil society, with a special focus on Muslim Americans in particular, and how that relates to the second part of the triangle, which is actually the mediated images of Muslims Americans in the media, and the third part, which is also countering Islamophobia. And my study is going to try to really tackle these three very important aspects and see how they are interrelated and interconnected to each other. There is definitely a relationship, and we should try to step up our good actions and our good deeds, but that's not enough. We should also make the rest of the world hear about them as well. We have in public relations a very important saying that we have to do good work and also tell people about it, so that our change makers and heroes today who are being honored in this very important event are indeed doing the important work on the ground. Then comes the part about the mediated images. It's no secret that we have the principle of when it bleeds, it leads, which means that unfortunately the media focuses on the negative images, on the bad and the ugly and the terrible, on conflicts and wars and events like 9/11. But what about the good and the positive and the constructive? Unfortunately, this aspect is usually missing. It is not there. And it's our responsibility also, not just to do good in the world, but also to tell people about it through changing the narrative and changing the story altogether. And we as American Muslims have to step up and to do this work with our own hands and our own voices. And then comes the third part of the triangle, which is countering Islamophobia. Recently, I was on an television interview about the effect of 9/11 on the mediated images of American Muslims. And I talked about how this has been terrible in terms of profiling and stigmatization and the spread of Islamophobia and negative images about Islam and Muslims. But there was also a silver lining in this very dark cloud, which is the fact that allies and advocates of the Muslim community started to step up and to reach out to American Muslims to create interfaith activities and initiatives and to try to work together to change this negative image and this negative representation in the media. We as American Muslims cannot do this alone. We also need allies and advocates to counter Islamophobia with us. And that's where the role of people like Professor Craig Constantine and Professor John Esposito and Professor Scott Alexander comes in. They play a very important role in trying to build alliances and to be advocates of the American Muslim community. And for that, we are very grateful. So many, many thanks to American Muslim Institution for holding this very important event. And many thanks to all of these great people doing this great work on the ground to be change makers and heroes for the American Muslim community and beyond. And many thanks to all the allies and advocates who are trying to reach out and step up and reach to the American Muslim community. Together, we can indeed do good work on the ground and also make the world hear about it in the media in order to counter Islamophobia. Thank you all. Peace and blessings. Take care and salam alaikum.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sahar, for those remarks. I'm so looking forward to reading your paper on COVID-19, the Muslim community, and philanthropy, and seeing how our community's good works are shifting the narrative on Islam and Muslims in this country. A part of philanthropy is recognizing those on the front line doing the great work. Our job as community members is to continue to support and encourage great work that is making an impact and to highlight those individuals whenever possible. Today, as we transition into the award ceremonies, we are very fortunate to have individuals who are leaders in their community, who are having an impact by providing food for the poor, providing opportunities for racial healing, and also public service, making differences one person and one community at a time. We're very fortunate to have Congressman Jamie Raskin join us. For those of you unfamiliar with him, he's an American author and politician serving as the U.S. Representative for Maryland's 8th Congressional District. Prior to his election to Congress, he was a constitutional law professor at American University. He is currently the chairman of the Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. He'll have the fine pleasure of introducing our first honoree, Mujahid Mohammed of Keys Empowers.
Hello, everyone. It's Congressman Jamie Raskin from Maryland's 8th District. I wanted to salute and congratulate my friends at the American Muslim Institution on your great 5-year anniversary and all of your magnificent work in the American Muslim community and in the broader community as well. You have offered a really rich and informed perspective to elected officials, to the media, and to the population at large. You are a central voice in our public life. And I particularly want to commend you on your new work on voter education, on racial justice, on religious tolerance, and on democratic coalition building. This has been a vital and a vibrant contribution. I salute you on it. In Congress, we, of course, are working on the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which we passed out of the House of Representatives, banning racial and ethnic profiling, banning the carotid holds and strangleholds, banning the lethal use of force in situations where lethal force is not called for. We have gotten rid of a lot of negative doctrines in court, like qualified immunity. We have a nationwide database of cops who are convicted or disciplined for violent behavior towards citizens. So the House of Representatives has put forward the strongest, most comprehensive police reform legislation in American history. We are waiting for the Senate to act, and we are hopeful that Mitch McConnell will allow the Senate to have hearings and to bring that forward. Meantime, I know that you are having an award ceremony, and I have the great privilege and honor of being able to confer the award for Advocacy and Justice, the Advocacy and Justice Award, to Keys Empowers. So that's coming from the American Muslim Institution to Keys Empowers, and I want to thank the American Muslim Institution for doing this, and I want to salute Keys Empowers for receiving this award. The founder of Keys Empowers is Mujahid Mohammed, who is a well-known community organizer in Baltimore, a renowned mental health professional, a champion of public health and of the interests of the people of the city of Baltimore. During the pandemic, Keys Empowers has played a central role, bringing hundreds of thousands of pounds, tons of food, tons of PPE to the people of Baltimore. And I want to commend you for that. We all are in your debt because of this. And in general, even prior to the plague, Keys Empowers has played a critical role in connecting with young people and reducing violence and conflicts in the community and providing safe spaces for young people to flourish and to grow and to prosper. So thank you for promoting peacekeeping and problem solving in the city of Baltimore. I am speaking for lots of people who admire your contributions to the city, Mujahid Mohammed and Keys Empowers, and on behalf of myself and with my friends at the American Muslim Institution, I confer upon you this award and I congratulate you on it.
Congressman Raskin, as we transition to Mujahid Mohammed, we'd like to share a quick video highlighting the work of Keys Empowers in Baltimore during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Before it came bearing down on our city, no one saw COVID-19 coming, and no one was prepared for the havoc it would wreak. But Keys Empowers' long-standing work in Baltimore City allowed us to hear the needs of our people and jump into action.
I'm Councilwoman Shannon Sneed. I am representing District 13 as a councilwoman, and so I'm a community member. I don't live too far from here, and so I'm here because whenever we have people that come into our community to support my neighbors, I want to be there and help out in any way I can.
My name is Antonio Glover, and I'm the City Council representative.
My name is Sharif Hadi. I'm the CEO of Islamic Relief USA.
With the backing of great sponsors and local politicians, Keys quickly developed the Community Cares Action Program and sought resources to provide for those in need.
There's a lot of people that obviously are going through one of the most difficult chapters in their entire lives right now. They're hungry, they might be losing their home, and we want to make sure that, one, they get a little hope, and that hope can be manifested through food, it can be manifested through reassurance.
So during COVID, a lot of people in these communities are not working.
People of color right here in our community that suffers from the COVID-19. One reason because lack of health insurance, lack of jobs, and lack of opportunity. So one of my biggest goals is just to come in here and get on the ground working.
Estamos aquí repartiendo comida, repartiendo unas maquillajes. Oh, perdóname. Estamos repartiendo máscaras. Here we're giving out food, we're giving out bags, we're giving out PPE kits, personal hygiene kits. Know, to embarrass, to let their family and friends know that they don't have anything to eat that night, or some fresh fruit, a good meal, potatoes, stewed potatoes. You throw some meat in there, and it's just very good. And the opportunity to come out with neighbors who you haven't seen in a very long time to just say hello, how are you, to make sure that you're okay.
It's really critical. When you're here, you see the importance of organizations like Keys Empower. Like, they're here to showcase and support consistently. There are times when people, it's okay to come for once in a blue moon and help, but you really need to see that consistent community work.
It's our third or fifth event that we've had thus far, and we've been able to provide over 3,500 PPE kits to families, activity kits for kids, and have given away hundreds of thousands of pounds of food.
We gave out $15,000 in grocery store gift cards. We provided $35,000 rental assistance checks. We thank our sponsors and community members who pitched into this heroic effort. Without you, there is no us.
My first experience with Keys is Keys helped me out with some rental assistance. It was so gratefully needed.
I would just like to thank Keys Empowerment Incorporated for helping me out with this check for my rent. God bless them.
Thank you for helping me through this pandemic with the funds. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for helping me get through this tough time.
Thank you to Keys Empower for helping me make it through another couple months with my rent. Appreciate it.
Thank you for Keys for helping me in the bad times that I'm having at the moment.
Thank you so much to Keys Empowerment for helping me through this crisis, helping my family out. I appreciate y'all guys. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mujahid Muhammad. I am honored and floored at the opportunity to be able to speak to you tonight. I appreciate the fact that you would honor the work that we're doing at Keys Empowers, the work around social justice and the work around creating healing for those that need it so much. As the American Muslim Institution, we are definitely connected to what you are doing in our country. The fact that you represent us in every part of this country is something that gives us solace. As Keys Empowers, the work that we're doing around social justice is one that needs support. But that support comes in many different forms. And this honorary tonight is part of that. There's an African proverb that says, when you want to go at something quickly, go at it alone. But when you want to go far in a task, go at it as a group. So the work around social justice does not take one organization or one person. We all have to work at this. that our country is one where everyone must feel that they are part and they have ownership in it. And you are doing that work. You're doing that for the Muslim community, and you're doing that for the community at large. So I want to thank you for the work that you're doing in honoring us. I also want to thank Congressman Raskin, because this award is one that shows the partnership between our public offices and our community members is one that creates change. We hear this term all the time, but what creates change? Belief. And tonight, when I receive this award, what I understand is that you believe in the work that we are doing. So continue to believe in us, and we will continue to believe in you. And this is what's going to help our country heal. Thank you so much again for this award. Good night.
Congratulations, Mujahid. You really deserve this award. For the past year that I have known you, I have seen you on the streets demonstrating. I've seen you in the classroom with students, and I've seen you in the neighborhoods of Baltimore serving local people. You're an exemplar example of what it means to be a Muslim. I see that you are an example to me, to the Muslim community, and to all the residents of Baltimore. And I'm very pleased to announce today that you and I working together, along with other African American influencers, to encourage African American community, Muslim and non-Muslim, to go out and vote. Every vote matters this election cycle. We're also very lucky to partner with the AME churches in Georgia, Stacey Abrams Fair Count Foundation, and Census Counts, a conglomeration of 3,000 religious institutions in Georgia. We're really fortunate to be working together on this project. And speaking of partnerships, I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, who has been an ally to the Muslim American community. I first met Dr. Craig Considine at a university fundraising dinner where he was the keynote speaker. He discussed the need for American Muslims to be involved civically. And he mentioned again and again that there was no distinction between being an American and a Muslim. And I thought to myself, how is it someone who is an Irish Catholic Italian so familiar with the American Muslim struggle? I consider him a friend and a colleague. And for those of you interested in a more formal biography, he is actually at the Department of Sociology at Rice University. He's authored quite a few books and articles which have been featured on New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Fox News, and so many others. For those of you that have not picked up his book, I highly recommend The Humanity of Muhammad, A Christian View. I think you'll enjoy it. Dr. Considine, the floor is yours.
Warmth and that love right back. You're doing some incredible work. So Shahid mentioned that my new book is out, The Humanity of Muhammad, A Christian View, and there's an entire chapter of this book dedicated to Prophet Muhammad's position on racial equality. And we are well aware as people living in this country, whether you're a citizen or not, it doesn't matter, that there's a struggle happening at the moment. And race is a prominent factor in our social relations, in our own individual lived experiences. And we've been seeing this term pop up more and more in the media. And this term is anti-racism. And as a human, this is fundamental. It's so important to be anti-racist because personally, I'm a believer that we have one creator and that fundamentally, first and foremost, we're all human beings before any other identity category that you want to place. And ironically, even though I am someone who identifies themselves as a Christian and more specifically a Catholic, I'm actually quite inspired by Prophet Muhammad's life and legacy and specifically the stories that we have of his life that actually relate to some of the contemporary struggles that we are facing as a nation and as communities. And I'd like to start by talking about the relationship that he had with a man named Bilal ibn Rabah. And a lot of Muslims are familiar with Bilal, but I'm not sure outside of Muslim circles if Bilal is very well known. And Bilal was born into slavery, and his mother was from Abyssinia, which was an ancient Christian kingdom in the modern day country of Ethiopia. And his father was is said to have been a local Arab in the Meccan area, Mecca being said to be Muhammad's hometown. And Bilal caught wind of this message of humanity that Muhammad was talking about. This is around the year 610 to 613. Muhammad is talking about this idea of God, of oneness, the oneness of humanity. He's also talking about things like compassion and mercy. And he's thinking about new ways of bringing people together, of forming new communities. And Bilal became an early follower of Muhammad, believing in not only this message, but believing in Muhammad and his upright character, because Bilal was looked down upon because of how he was brought into this world, what he looked like when he was in this world. And obviously, being in the position of a slave, he had no way out. But Muhammad believed in him so much that he arranged for one of his companions, Abu Bakr, to actually purchase the freedom of Bilal. And once free, Bilal becomes one of the most important people in the early Muslim community, in the early Ummah. He is quite close to Muhammad, but he also becomes the muezzin, which is the Arabic term that relates to the person that calls Muslims to prayer. It's a really kind of honorable position. And that's quite powerful. I mean, talk about being anti-racist, literally emancipating someone. You know, this is distinguished, anti-racism is, from non-racism. You know, non-racist is a category that you would give to someone that believes in racial equality, which is a good thing. You know, to be a non-racist is good, but to be anti-racist is better. And what that anti-racism entails is being active, you know, like not just thinking about racial equality, but doing racial equality. That's what Muhammad was doing. There's also another interesting example from Muhammad's life that may not come across as overtly anti-racist or one that promotes racial equality, but in the year 615, when the early Muslim community was facing persecution for their belief in this oneness of God, this monotheism, and this humanity, Muhammad was concerned that the persecution for his people was becoming too strong, and he saw that physical attacks started to happen. So he encouraged his early followers, a group of them, to actually seek refuge in Abyssinia, which I just mentioned is in kind of modern day Ethiopia. And this was a Christian kingdom. And these are two different, you know, tribes, or if you want to call them races. I mean, the crowd in Mecca was more probably Arab in terms of ethnicity. And then you move further down and things change, populations change. So Muhammad is thinking, you know, his view of life, of humanity is like, you don't have to look like me or be from the same family as me for you to help me or for you to be my friend. So Muhammad is saying, I know that these people are good people and they'll take care of you. So he had faith in others that he had never met before. The Negus or the king of Abyssinia at that time was King Ibn Abjar. And this was an African man. And there's an amazing story, and I can't get into all the details, but I'd like to share the big picture of this. When the enemies of the Muslim community were in the court of King Ibn Abjar. The enemies of the Muslims were in the court because they traced them from Mecca to Abyssinia. And the enemies of the Muslims were saying, you need to hand these people over to us. Stop giving them refuge. Stop letting them basically be asylum seekers in your country. And the Negus, Ibn Abjar, said, not for a mountain of gold will I give these people back up to you. You know, I mean, that is talk about being an ally. That is a monumental example of proper allyship. Two more examples I want to get into, and then I'll field some questions. 7 years later, after the first migration to Abyssinia, we had the second migration. The persecution against the early Muslim community was not getting any better. And this time, Muhammad himself migrates northward to another city called Medina. And Medina was largely populated by some pagan tribes, which were probably Arab, and then there were some Jewish tribes as well. And the history is a little bit flaky on who exactly these Jewish tribes were. Were they converts to Judaism or not? It's kind of up in the air. But the important part to take away from this example of Muhammad's arrival to Medina is all of these groups of people, so Muslims, pagans, and Jews, diverse group in terms of race, ethnicity, perhaps, they come together and they decide to create a new kind of society, a new kind of nation. And this kind of nation is not predicated on issues pertaining to race or ethnicity, as they had been at that time. It was a very tribal society. So again, your place in this world was determined by how you were brought into this world and how you looked. And families were quite divided. So it was hyper tribal. And the Medinese people, with Muhammad as the head of state, created a document called the Constitution of Medina in 622. And for those who like constitutional law, and they like to think about how governments go about navigating freedom of religion, freedom of worship, freedom of speech, and freedom of conscience, I highly suggest viewing the Constitution of Medina. In some ways, it's actually a precursor to the Constitution of this country. This country, in its ideal form, the United States, does not determine one's belonging, at least in words. In words, the Declaration of Independence says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, all people created equal, that they have certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. There's nothing in there about a racial requisite, an ethnic requisite, or a religious requisite. What made you belong to that place was the law, the constitutional principles, the democratic atmosphere, this idea of, we're doing something that's bigger than our tribes. We're creating a new type of nation, a new way of operating. And the last point on racial equality that I would like to bring up in light of the current anti-racist movement is Prophet Muhammad's farewell sermon, which was given in 632. This is obviously a very significant speech. It was his kind of last chance to really leave an imprint on his followers. And there's a portion of this speech that says, and I'm paraphrasing, an Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab person. A black person has no superiority over a non-black. A white person has no superiority over a non-white, and vice versa, all these categories. So he's saying, no one is superior than the other just because you belong to a racial category. But the really important element of this part of the farewell sermon is when Muhammad says, no one is better than the other based upon race or character unless they have good character and conduct, right? So he is saying something quite similar. And let me elaborate on this. In 1963, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, he said, I hope that one day my 4 children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And Muhammad said the same thing. He said, in character and good conduct. So I'm inspired by these things. Muhammad happens to be, quote, the first Muslim, and he was an Arab. Dr. King was an American, a Christian, an African American. These categories, in some ways, inspire, but in other ways, they become meaningless because this is about humanity. This is really about taking care of people and looking at people not in terms of these racial categories, but in terms of the fundamental human dignity that they inherently have, because they're human. And we're all human. And I think it's important to stress this point. So I'm happy to field some questions at this point.
Dr. Considine, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Amna Hashmi, living in Boston. What have you learned from the life and teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about what we can do to be better anti-racists? How can we better dismantle the racist institutions and systems that are so embedded in our society? Do you think Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would have participated in the Black Lives Matter protests of today?
So, what inspired me as a Catholic? That brings me back to the identity categories. And I was actually inspired as a Catholic later in my life with Muhammad. The first thing that really kind of triggered my interest in this was the humanity that I was seeing as a human in the Islamic tradition, in the life of Muhammad. And at the time when this interest was sparked, I didn't look at it from the lens of a Catholic. I was just me. I was just a person, and a person that was concerned with what was happening around me and what was happening in the world. As a Catholic, I became more inspired the more I learned about Islamic history, the life of Muhammad, Christian-Muslim relations. So when I dug deeper, that's when it kind of resonated with me more as a Catholic, because I started digging into the theology and seeing some pretty striking similarities between Christianity and Islam that I feel are really either dismissed because they don't get media attention or downright ignored. And I'm also inspired by Muhammad's life, but also all of these kind of themes that I've been talking about as an American. Like I mentioned the Constitution of Medina. I see this as embodying what people in this country would refer to as, quote, American values. And these two small examples throughout history can really serve as a bridge between faiths, between communities, and hopefully even between civilizations. So that's what inspires me, really. I'm inspired in multiple ways, depending on the category I relate it to, but ultimately I'm concerned with building bridges.
Hi, I'm Hernessa, and I live in Northern Virginia. My question is, now that you have researched and learned more about Islam, how have your views about the status and rights of women changed from before and now?
So the issue of how to get this knowledge to a broader audience, this is a significant struggle, and I'm afraid that there's no easy solution. There's multiple layers to this. I think people who are inspired by some of the themes that were addressed in my talk should be active, and they should disseminate their own type of understanding of these events and these themes. I think we need more people. That's how we can get to a broader audience. Like, we need more active people thinking about these things, writing about these things, creating around these things. It's not possible if we just have a handful of people engaging in it. There's only so much people can do. We need an army of peaceful warriors, if I could say that, with people who are emphasizing knowledge and compassion and understanding. That's what we need. I also would like to add too, in terms of the broader audience, we need to find ways of making some of these discussions around anti-racism, civic nation building, we need to get it into the mainstream. You know, we never hear about things like, you know, pluralism and compassion and peace. When do we ever hear about these things in the media? You know, I'm a believer in this phrase, if it leads, it bleeds. You know, peace is not profitable. Peace is not going to make the news, but we need to find ways of bringing some of these issues to the major organizations that have a hold really over our minds.
Hi, my name is Yasmin. I'm from Manassas, Virginia. And I just wanted to know what specifically in your educational background and your life experiences influenced your studies and interests in Islam, and specifically with the Prophet Muhammad.
Congressman Sarbanes, can you hear me?
So institutional racism, another deeply ingrained issue in the history of this country, for certain. And unfortunately, we've never reconciled with it. And I'm not only talking about something like the struggle that African Americans are currently, many are going through with their own civil rights. I'm talking about the history of this country and the institutional racism that we've seen from the very beginning with the genocide of the Native American people. And I'm not bringing up some of these examples, even things like Japanese internment camps. I'm not bringing them up to hate on America. I don't hate my country at all, but we've never really came to the table to reconcile the differences and the outcome of these issues. You know, the South Africans after apartheid, they had reconciliation councils to try to, you know, find ways of not just being non-enemies, but finding ways of being friends, how we can bring all this together. And I'll say this as well with institutional racism. I think the best way to get rid of it is for people who are directly impacted by it to actually get inside the system and to be that change. You know, and I borrow this point from my friend Khalid Badoun, another scholar and author of American Islamophobia. We gave a talk a couple of years ago at Rice, and he said, or he was asked the question, you know, what is the best way to change the system? And he said, run for political office and be the representative. And I really like that. It's a very bold idea, but it really does kind of measure up to, you know, be the change you want to see. If you don't like institutional racism, in addition to finding your allies, you know, find ways of beating it yourself. You know, find ways of beating it yourself. Find people that will help you and assist you in this kind of dismantling of this historic system that we see.
My name is Maggie Zargapur. I'm from Prince William County, Virginia. And my question is, for non-Muslims that might not have information about Prophet Muhammad's stance on racial inequality, where could they get this information? What kind of resources can they access?
Okay, so this question on women has multiple layers as well. And I actually dedicate a whole chapter to the Humanity of Muhammad, a Christian view, to women's rights. And I'll say this, my perception of Muslim women have significantly changed, especially considering the state in which I started. 2004, when I was a sophomore at American University, I'd never met a Muslim in my life, had no understanding of Islam, no context to make sense of 9/11. And I walk into Professor Ahmed's class believing in some ways, believing in this narrative that Muslim women around the world are helpless, oppressed, victims of violence. Now, these things are true in some cases, but the way that the media was depicting it during the Afghan war and the Iraq war is if these Muslim women needed to be absolutely liberated and freed, and it was our job to do it. And when I started learning more about not only the Islamic tradition, but when I started learning about and experiencing and interacting with people, Muslim people who happen to be women, that's when I really started to learn. So I'll say two issues, one on the Islamic front and then the other on the kind of everyday personal front. So Muhammad's relationship with Khadija is one of the, I think, primary elements for one to really understand in terms of a big picture, the approach that Muhammad took with women in general. So Khadija was 15 years his elder. She was a lot wealthier than he was. She had a bigger kind of business enterprise. She was well respected. And Muhammad, being a humble man that he was, saw no issue in kind of putting down his ego or putting away this potential criticism that he would face for marrying a woman who's 15 years his older and more powerful than he was. And he said, no, I mean, that's not what this is. I love her because of who she is as a person. So Muhammad's first wife being a business person, a successful one at that, then how do we justify today when we see the denial of women's human rights to work or something like that, which happens in some places of the world. And this is not unique to Islam either. I mean, this is a global struggle. And then personally, I'd like to say, I have countless friends who are Muslim and women, Muslim women, and very enriching relationships. A lot of very successful people that I really admire, not only on the professional front, but I've got to know their families. And I really, really do respect how they carry themselves, how they are able to balance all of the intricacies of life, being a mother and being a person that works at NASA. So just very impressive. And another thing I'll add too, I remember my Nana on my Italian Catholic side, she used to wear hijab when she used to leave the house. It was a little shawl that she used to put on. It's a tradition from Italy. And then, years later, when I started my studies and my travels, for some reason, I always thought back to that. And my Nana wore it. I never got an opportunity to ask her why she wore it, but there was something humbling about it. And that's something I appreciate because I try to be humble myself. Thank you.
Dr. Craig, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm gonna head out and take a break before getting back on, Shahid.
Thank you so much, Dr. Considine, for being generous with your time and wisdom. We really appreciate you taking questions from the audience. It was great of you. And I think the nuggets of wisdom that we have gained about Islam and Prophet Muhammad and race, they have practical implications today. And it's something for us to think about as we live through racial tensions throughout this country. You have been a true ally to our community. Speaking of true allies to our community, I'm privileged and honored to introduce Senator Chris Van Hollen. He'll actually be introducing our next honoree. For those of you unfamiliar with Senator Van Hollen, he has been a champion of the American Muslim community. He is a junior United States Senator from Maryland since 2017. Prior to that, from 2003 to 2017, he served as Congressman for Maryland's 8th Congressional District. For those of you familiar with his career, in 2007, Senator Van Hollen became the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. In this post, he was responsible for leading efforts to defend vulnerable Democrats and get more Democrats elected to Congress in 2008. In 2006, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi created a new position and appointed Senator Van Hollen as assistant to the Speaker. Senator Van Hollen, we are looking forward to hearing from you. Please.
Hi, I'm Chris Van Hollen, and I'm proud to represent the great state of Maryland in the United States Senate, and honored to join all of you this evening for this special occasion, even if we must gather virtually, to salute and thank those heroes who have responded to the COVID-19 crisis. I want to start by thanking the American Muslim Institution for all the work you've done over the years to build a better understanding of Islam. Congratulations on your 5-year anniversary. And over those 5 years, you really have helped build bridges between and among our communities and let America know about the core values of Islam, of acceptance, of compassion, equality, justice, and peace. And thank you also for bringing us together to honor other organizations that have provided essential services during these very trying times. And I want to congratulate all the individuals and organizations who are being recognized. And it is my great honor to present and provide a special shout out to the Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, which is founded and chaired by my dear friend, Tufail Ahmed. And I want to thank the foundation for all the work you do in our community year after year, providing help to those in greatest need, helping refugees resettle, providing scholarships to needy students, and essentials to struggling families, regardless of religion or race or ethnicity, whether it be food or furniture or clothing. And thank you for stepping up in such a big way during this COVID-19 pandemic. You have been there on the front lines, providing protections through PPE, personal protective equipment, providing essential food assistance, and in every way reaching out to neighbors and lifting up others. That's what you did before the pandemic hit, and that's what you've been doing as one of our heroes, responding to this crisis. So it's a great honor for me to be able to present AMI's Humanitarian Award to the Montgomery County Muslim Foundation. Congratulations. Thank you for all the important work you do for our community and our country.
On behalf of Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, I accept the Humanitarian Award by American Muslim Institution. We are very delighted to receive this award on behalf of our board members and our general membership, who always help us in a big way to conduct these programs for the larger community in Montgomery County. Basically, the whole idea of our organization was that how Muslims can help the non-Muslim in our community. That is the basic purpose and idea behind our organization. So when the COVID-19 came, our board decided to go and help the larger community. So we started raising the money from the community. We raised about $36,000 from the community, and we got a grant of about $12,000 from Islamic Relief, which was arranged by AMI and its staff. We are very grateful to them to arrange this grant to us. So we had a total of about $48,000, which we spent all money in distributing food boxes to the needy families in Montgomery County. We raised about 36,000 of our own money, 12,000 of Islamic relief money. So we distributed more than 1,200 boxes of food to the needy families. It cost us about $40 per box. And so we made 1,200 in $48,000. So it was deeply appreciated by the community at large, and they all appreciated what we have done for them. So that is how we also do some other work also for them, like distributing raw meat. When we have Zabiha meat, we distributed about 6,000 pounds of meat to the Muslim community and non-Muslim community, which was very appreciated by them. So we thank you for this award, and we appreciate it very much, and our board will appreciate it very much, and thank you very much.
Congratulations, Mr. Tufail Ahmed, on your significant achievements. It goes without saying, Montgomery County Muslim Foundation is making a difference in their community. And not only are they making a difference in their community, I am positive that they are inspiring other Muslim communities to do important work, that is, serving their communities and showing the true face of Islam. So congratulations again. I mean, it's so impressive. $50,000 in food during COVID-19, thousands of PPE distributed. And what's amazing is you guys have only stepped up your game during this pandemic. So again, continue the great work in Maryland. Our next speaker is another Maryland native, actually a Baltimore native. He is Congressman John Sarbanes. He's represented Maryland's Congressional 3rd District since 2007. He serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, in addition to the House Subcommittee on Health, Energy, Oversight, and Investigations. He is on the Democracy Reform Task Force, and for those of you familiar with him, he has been a champion of protecting the environment, the Affordable Care Act, education. Prior to joining Congress, Congressman Sarbanes was working at the Maryland State Department of Education. He worked as a lawyer, serving hospitals, and prior to that, he worked at the Public Justice Center, protecting and championing the rights of decent public housing and fair treatment in the workplace for all Marylanders. I think it's only appropriate that he has the opportunity to recognize our next honoree, who is also an Ivy League alum, who's also a public servant, who's been continuously championing these same issues in Connecticut. Congressman Sarbanes, looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate the opportunity to join with the American Muslim Institution. First of all, let me congratulate you on your 5-year anniversary. I've been a part of many, many organizations, and it is no small feat to reach the 5-year milestone. That's a reflection of the work you do, and it's obviously a reflection of the dedication of all those who have been part of your efforts. So congratulations on that. We know right now that every effort we can muster to combat Islamophobia, but more broadly, just to combat hate and discrimination and bigotry in our society, this is an effort that has to be joined by all people of good faith. And I know that the American Muslim Institution has made that an absolute priority. Your work in reaching out to various stakeholders, I think, has really gained a tremendous reputation. Working to reach out with respect to the media to promote interfaith dialogue and understanding. This is something very close to my heart because for almost 25 years, I served as a board member of the Institute for Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies in Baltimore, which was every day trying to promote that kind of dialogue among communities of faith and understanding that the common bonds of reaching out and strengthening community bring us all together. Even though we come from different faith traditions, we stand humbly before the faith traditions of others. And that's, I know very much, that kind of humility is very much at the center of the work that you do. Reaching out to the community at the grassroots, building that connective tissue, as I like to call it, between and among different communities and peoples is so important, particularly at this moment in time when the pandemic is putting so much pressure on all of us across the country. But we know there's been a disproportionate impact of the pandemic and the economic fallout on communities of color. And I know that AMI has stepped up and leaned into the response, the outreach to try to support those communities across the country and certainly in Maryland and our region. I want to thank you for that. Finally, it's critical in today's event and your outreach is an example of this, to connect to policymakers, to make sure that we're listening carefully to the concerns that you bring forward, not just the concerns of the Muslim community, but the broader concerns that you're raising up. I mean, that's a tribute to the work you do, which is to bring an enlightened perspective of all the things we need to do to strengthen our country. So the outreach to policymakers, I think, is something really, really critical. In this moment, I can tell you I'm very focused in Washington through my work on the Health Committee and on the Oversight Committee in making sure that we're trying to bring as much relief and assistance to struggling communities and families and small businesses across the country at this difficult time. And also make sure that we're thinking as policymakers about how the world's going to look different on the other side of this pandemic and the new structures we can build that can lift up our communities and lift up our country. So I'm very much excited about the prospect to continue to partner with the American Muslim Institution as we move forward. Now, I have to tell you that I've been given this privilege of presenting the award or describing the acknowledgement of Saud Anwar, who, when I read, and I'm going to read, I have to tell you, I'm going to read a little bit from the bio that I have, just because I tried to remember sort of by memory what the high points were, and I got lost after the first couple of paragraphs. And there's no way to abbreviate the biography of Dr. Anwar, because if you do so, you do him a disservice because of all of the amazing accomplishments. So if you and he will bear with me for a moment, I just want to highlight some of these amazing things from his career. Right now, he serves as the Deputy President Pro Tem of the Connecticut State Senate. So he is a fellow elected official, and I appreciate his service to the state of Connecticut. He served 2 terms previously as the South Windsor mayor from 2013 to 15, and then again from 17 to 19. He is a medical professional, as you know, but he serves currently. I don't know how he does all these things, I must tell you. He serves currently as chair of the Department of Internal Medicine at Manchester Memorial and Rockville General Hospitals. He was trained in pulmonary and critical care medicine at Yale, and he holds a master's degree in public health from Yale University. He's a founding member of, and I'm going to read these because it demonstrates the breadth of engagement and involvement of Dr. Anwar. And I think it's important because it has to be a point of pride within the Muslim community to hear these things. But it's a point of pride, frankly, as just a fellow citizen who marvels, an elected official who marvels at the ability of some people to be this engaged and this impactful in their work. He's a founding member of the South Windsor Hunger Action Team, the Zero Waste South Windsor and South Windsor Alliance for Progress, founder of the South Windsor Haiti School, board member of the South Windsor Community Foundation, and former chair of the South Windsor Human Relations Commission. He's testified in Congress on many occasions to the 109th Congress's Committee on Homeland Security, which was coordinating volunteer response to September 11. He served as a consultant to the FBI's Multicultural Advisory Committee and has spoken at many conferences in that Homeland Security space. Internationally, he served on peace missions to Israel and the Middle East, as well as medical missions to Haiti and Pakistan after natural disasters. He has been recognized with numerous awards by the American Red Cross, the FBI, the Anti-Defamation League, the National Council of Community and Justice's Human Relations Award, the Connecticut Trailblazer Award, etc. And most recently, he gained attention for an invention, working with a team to produce a ventilator that could support actually 7 patients simultaneously. So I have to tell you, Dr. Anwar, that sometimes I read these biographies of people and it makes me feel quite inadequate when I'm done reading it. And this is an example of that, because all that you have accomplished is such a tribute to your energy, your engagement, your desire to bring as much of the talents and potential that you fulfilled to lift up the community and benefit others. This is exactly the kind of person that we should be recognizing and paying tribute to in this very difficult and challenging moment for our country. So it's a pleasure to have joined the American Muslim Institution. I want to congratulate you on honoring Dr. Saud Anwar for his amazing contributions and congratulate him on the Public Service Award. And with that, I'll yield back.
While we wait for Dr. Anwar, here is a quick clip of him receiving national media recognition for his work during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Last night, the town held a surprise parade for one of its frontline workers. Photojournalist Brian Mickendoe was there.
This is a complete surprise. I'm just overwhelmed.
We should call it the Unsung Heroes Parade. So today we're going to be celebrating Dr. Saud Anwar, who's our state senator, as well as a lung doctor at Manchester Hospital. We love you! You know, we've seen online with cities how they're able to, in a smaller space, thank the hospital staff by standing outside the hospital. We're in the suburbs, it's a lot harder because we're all spread out. So that's why we figured we're going to go to them.
Because I'm taking care of the patients with COVID, so I don't want my family to be exposed, so I live in a room. So it's been pretty lonely and challenging. I'm blessed to be working with people in my hospital, but across the state, who are putting their lives at risk to take care of the patients who need them.
We just want to really show our local heroes that we appreciate them and that we care about them, and that what they're doing to put themselves at risk for us isn't going unnoticed.
Just love everybody. Feel so blessed.
Yeah, his smile says it all there. The town says it hopes to hold other surprise parades for more unsung heroes in the coming days.
So much, Congressman Sarbanes, for your very kind introduction. I wanted to thank the American Muslim Institution for considering me worthy of this award. And I also want to recognize and thank our organizations that have been doing some very important work, the Keys in Power and Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, and all the members who have actually been the power behind these organizations. Look, we are living in unprecedented times. We have seen disasters show themselves in so many ways in the recent many months. We have seen them in the form of impacting our communities, people we know, people we have been serving, and young and old who have all been infected. And we have also seen another disaster of racism, which has been impacting communities for a long time, but it is showing itself in such a significant manner, and it's impacting the ones who are the most vulnerable and the minorities. At this time, I feel while I am being recognized, the real heroes have literally been each and every individual who has been working to help take care of the patients, which includes our nursing staff, the respiratory therapists, the people in the hospital at all different levels, from the ones who clean the rooms to the ones who actually take care of the patients' needs and nurses' aides. So literally it has taken a village to come together to take care of individual patients. This has been one of the most difficult times of the career of people in healthcare. This has actually brought us to a reality that we can make a big difference, but we also are vulnerable to being impacted. And when you recognize that the patient that you're going to go and take care of could give you the infection and you do not have enough protections, that actually impacts you and really tests your will and your willingness to do the best that you can with the resources that you have. So many people in healthcare have died, not only in the United States, but across the world. I think they are the ones who, and their family are the ones who are also people that we need to recognize and keep in our prayers and our thoughts. At times like this, what we see is the best in humans, and we have seen the best in humans in our communities across the board. People who have come out and show their love and respect for the healthcare workers, but also try to help out people in healthcare field in all different possible ways. And then also take care of the victims and their families of this disaster. And we cannot thank those people who have come forward to help out as well. But we have a lot of work to do. The work that we have to do going forward is recognize that this disease was not fair to communities. In other words, our minority communities, the most vulnerable communities, the people who are in inner cities, our African-American brothers and sisters, the Latino brothers and sisters, they were impacted the most. And the reason why they were impacted the most which was a sign of poor public health to take care of their healthcare needs at baseline, and in the disaster, we actually see the vulnerabilities even much worse. So if we can learn something from this disaster, we have a responsibility to take care of our most vulnerable and most important and most precious brothers and sisters in the communities and make sure they are protected every single day. And that's our responsibility. This is part of our faith, for that matter. So we have to do what is right. We have to do everything to take care of our community members who are less fortunate at this time. I want to again thank the organizations who have been doing this. American Muslim Institution, thank you. And knowing the type of people and the ones who have been recognized in the past, I feel I'm not worthy of this, but it's your kindness that allows you to consider a person like me to be worthy. And I want to thank you, and my family and everybody thanks you for considering me for this. Thank you again, and please stay well and stay healthy.
Dr. Anwar, you are so gracious. There is nobody more deserving of the Public Service Award than you. You have been a role model and pillar to the Muslim American community. You're on the front lines of COVID, not only supporting your constituents, but your patients. You're a brave person. And the images and videos we saw of your constituents honking their horns was fantastic. It's amazing. Your work is appreciated and recognized. You're an inspiration to the American Muslim community. We're very lucky to have another inspiration for their community today. Congressman David Trone, for those of you not familiar with him, is the example and epitome of the American dream. He grew up on a farm and through education earned his bachelor's degree and MBA. He opened his first store. Fast forward 20 years later, he has over 7,000 employees nationwide. Congressman David Trone was elected in 2018 to serve Maryland's 6th Congressional District. He serves on the Education and Labor, Foreign Affairs, and Joint Economic Committees, where he is fighting to make progress on issues that matter to Marylanders, including the opioid epidemic, criminal justice reform, and funding for mental health research. Congressman Trone, we are so excited to have you.
I'm Congressman David Trone from Maryland's 6th Congressional District. I'm glad to be here to share some words with today's attendees and celebrate the work the American Muslim Institution and today's honorees. For 5 years, AMI has worked to create connection between people. Their efforts to help people gain access to important government services during the pandemic is only one of many examples of their great impact. This year's Humanitarian Award honoree, Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, is a group near and dear to my heart. Tufal Ahmed, MCMF's founder, is a friend of ours and an important leader in Montgomery County. Since its inception, MCMF has assisted people from all walks of life, from food assistance during the pandemic to hosting vital discussions about racial and social justice in the wake of the recent unrest. In addition, MCMF has provided funds for legal defense, scholarships, and school supplies for underprivileged people throughout Maryland. They continue to be a beacon of hope for thousands of Marylanders. It's been my pleasure to get to know Tufal and the board of MCMF, and I look forward to their future successes. Keys in Power, founded by Mr. Mujahid Muhammad, is a truly inspirational organization. Based in Baltimore, Keys in Power has provided over 1,000 mental health sessions, both in person and virtually, during the pandemic. In addition to the work on mental health, Keys has provided over 100,000 pounds of food, $40,000 in rental assistance, and thousands of pieces of PPE throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Congratulations to Mr. Muhammad and your team for many jobs well done. Please keep up the great work. Lastly, I want to congratulate Dr. and Senator Saud Anwar for being honored with the Public Service Award this year. He has shown his passion and commitment to serving those on the front lines in our hospitals to battle this devastating virus. He also serves as a leader in the Connecticut State Senate. Once again, congratulations to these three outstanding trailblazers, Dr. Hamid, Dr. Anwar, and Mr. Mujahid Muhammad, for their incredible work and passion to help people. I look forward to continuing to work together to build a better community for our citizens. Thank you, take care, and be safe.
Thank you so much, Congressman Trone, for closing us out tonight and recognizing all of the honorees. As a community, we are so lucky to have individuals like Mujahid Muhammad, Mr. Tufal Ahmed, and Dr. Saad Anwar as models for our community, but not just for the Muslim community, but for broader society. Their work during this pandemic is not only alleviating stresses and challenges Americans are facing, but they're shining a positive light on Islam. When we talk about American Muslim Institution and shifting the narrative, really what we want to do more than anything is highlight the stories of these individuals. At this time, I'd like to introduce one of AMI's board members, one of the visionaries involved in coming up with the idea of creating an organization to shift this narrative around Islam and Muslims. For those of you that know Dr. Ishrat Hussain, you know that she is passionate about Muslims, not just American Muslims, but Indian Muslims and Muslims throughout the world. She is an economist, and she's currently employed in a senior capacity at the United States Agency for International Aid. Prior to joining USAID, she worked at the World Bank for over 25 years in technical and managerial positions. For those like myself who are regularly working with her, we're not off on weekends. Normally we have calls Sundays at 10 a.m. discussing what we should be doing, what we should be planning. So I know she is someone who has, with tremendous energy, excitement, enthusiasm, and vision. Dr. Hussain, looking forward to your closing remarks.
Greetings and good evening to you all. I would like to acknowledge with appreciation the presence of distinguished Congressman Raskin, Senator Von Hollen, Congressman Sarbanes, and Congressman Trone. Thanks, Senators and Congressmen, for your presence here. It has been extremely encouraging for all of us. Now I would like to express our thanks to the honorees for their great contribution during this very perilous and unprecedented period of COVID-19. Dr. Saud Anwar, a state senator and physician, has been at the front line of COVID-19 struggle. Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, particularly its president, Mr. Tufail Ahmed, for his dedication and humanitarian work. Keys Empower, CEO Mujahid Muhammad, for their work in healing the community in Baltimore, bringing social justice to the front line and provided much needed mental health to those in need. Immense thanks are due to our keynote speaker, Craig Considine, for his remarks on Islam, race, and the Prophet Muhammad. I'm reading his book. It's really fascinating piece of work. Thanks to you for that as well. I'll be remiss if I do not express our gratitude to all the frontline workers, doctors, nurses, essential services, and all others who have been really extremely helpful and literally saving millions of lives during this period. These have been remarkable 5 years in the life of AMI, and I would like to recognize and thank its President, Ambassador Islam Siddiqui, for his ingenuity, and to Mr. Shahid Rahman, its Director, for his dedication and extremely hard work. And thanks to you all for being here, and I assure you that we all have been extremely encouraged by your presence here. And thank you so much. Good evening.
Thank you for joining.